Hey everyone, welcome back to Conversations in Pop Culture, and we are back in the saddle once again for another season. And I do want to quickly update everybody. I am slowly recovering from my surgery. I am able to wiggle all my toes. I had a nerve block put in, and so I've been working really hard wiggling my toes. And you're damn right, I was channeling my inner Uma Thurman. I'm gonna go find a guy named Bill next. So, having said that, I have with me comic creator ESK, who's done everything. Running groups. Obviously, you're known well on Facebook. He's done a bunch of comics, and I know you're in the middle of funding Volume 2 of TransHuman. So, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. And look, I do have one passion, which I'll bring it up first. Um, I'm actually I do letter a lot. I also letter for a couple of publishers, but my absolute pleasure is there's a lot of indie creators who do reach out to me to letter their work, and I have one interesting stat. Which I didn't tell you about this beforehand, so this is something that's going to surprise yourself, Andrew. For all of 2022, there was a project on Kickstarter which I was involved in for every day of the year. Every day of the year, there was a project, sometimes multiple, but there was at least one project running for the entire year, which I had a part in. And I'm not talking, just say I shared it. Yeah, I actually had a part in the creation process. So for the entire year. Um, if you want, I'll show you the stats. I'll bring the receipts, as they always say. I can bring the receipts. But yeah, no, it was fantastic. So the entire year. To be fair though, if you think that most campaign runs for about 30 days, I just had to be involved in 12 projects. If you think about it that way, it's it's not as crazy as it seems. But actually, I think there was about 20, 30 projects I was involved in, and it just so happened that they stretched for the entire year. I thought for December I was going to miss out, but then somebody launched mid-December until early Jan 2023. I was like, yes, I got it for the whole year. My name is. I loved it. So lettering is absolutely my passion.
So obviously, I mean, we could talk about that too, which that obviously
Yeah.
lettering can make or break a book, coloring can make or break a book. I've had Sanju Navagunan, I've had SG Scarlett Gothon, um,
Yeah.
Claudia Iannicello, I think is her name. Great, 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 great woman. She's done a lot of colors. She's done a lot of art stuff. She had a Cowboy Bebop cover. Cool, cool woman for sure. But that we're going to talk about that too. But I do want to talk about your Kickstarter, which is Transhuman. Yeah, I think you're fully funded,
Yeah.
and then some. But this is for Volume 1 and
Yeah.
Volume 2, but I think mostly Volume 2. And so,
Yeah.
what is the basic premise of this graphic novel for those who are hearing about it for the first time? Because
Yeah.
there's people who have no idea what this is, and they have no clue what it is at all.
Well, I'll give you the one hit Kickstarter tip as well. So the absolute one Kickstarter tip, which you just picked up on, this is really for Volume 2. So Volume 1 was actually kickstarted, I think 1 or 2 years ago. So the one trick would be is if I just put, or if you as a creator put um, Andrew, the wrestling comic, and I know you love wrestling, Andrew wrestling comic issue 2. What it does is it automatically alienates your audience, because if you're scrolling through the Kickstarter list and you see issue 2 and you go, wait, I never got issue 1. Oh well, skip. It does that initial mindset thing. Now it's very, very simple to go Andrew wrestling comic issue 1 and 2. That automatically thinks, if I'm scrolling through, I'm going, well, it's issue 2, but one is there as well. Hey, happy to click and take a look. Now, everything is about the click and the traffic. So if you don't, I don't care if you have the best Kickstarter in the world. If I don't click on that link or I don't click on that image, guess what? Doesn't matter. Absolutely doesn't matter. And all it takes is that 1 to 2 that makes, I would say, an absolute world of difference, especially for creators who are trying to build up their audience, build up their platform. You could do 1, 2, and 3 for the next one, 1-4 for the next one, 1-5, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. But you want to make it such that, hey, even when you get into it, let's say you're not selling physical copies of issue 1 in anything, you sold out. That's cool. The fact that you put 1 in there means you can still say, hey, look, if you haven't read 1, I've got digital copies available. I've got a PDF I can sell you. And at least then I can go, you know what? Looks fantastic. I'll give 2 a go. I'll pick up digital copy of 1, or in case of TransHuman, there is physical copies of 1 available. So there is that catch up. Sorry, quick aside.
No. Let's actually talk about this, because
yeah.
it's sometimes it can be done, and other times it cannot be done in certain realms, where I just know that there's certain projects where you can't do that, where volume 2, it's an anthology. It's the second anthology, and it has nothing to do with that. I'm in the process of building something out myself, and volume 1 and volume 2 are not going to be, there's going to be extremely limited copies of volume 1. So I could technically put up volume 1 when I come around the second time, but there's going to get to a point where everything in volume 1 is sold out, because it's limited, where I'm printing 200 copies of each SKU, and that's it. There's a business mind for it. And even on the digital side, I'm going to limit the digitals.
Okay.
For a reason.
That's fine. If you want a limited edition, you can't think. But with my digitals, digital beating digital,
I
I'm
agree.
always as many as you like. I don't tend to limit digital. But on transhuman though, so the term transhuman is basically transhumanism, which is it's a technology term. Like it follows what they call the post-humanism model. And I know it sounds all scary. It's really not. It's basically the idea that humans can evolve through technology. So we're talking cybernetic, cyborg, or whatever. So
I'll give an example, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. I equate your books similar to Ghost in the Shell.
Yes, it does follow a lot of the ideas behind it. I'll throw the first question. This is what I usually do how many senses do you think you have?
What would you say? I missed it.
Sorry, how many senses do you have?
Well, I would say 5, but some people say I have 6, and some people are lucky if they get smell.
It's actually closer to 30. 22 are established, but the actual number of human senses is actually closer to 30.
I like how you just threw my joke completely aside.
I know.
I just love it. I love it.
I know. Look, for example, I'll give you a couple. You were thinking, this guy's talking crazy. Humans have only have 5 senses, maybe the 6th paranormal sense. But no. Think about it. You have a sense of balance. That if you step onto a floor that's uneven, that's not touch. That's definitely not touch. How do you know the floor is uneven? It's your sense of balance. How do you know when you walk into a room and you haven't touched anything? How do you know the room is warm or cold? It's not touch. It's you have different senses too. There's also a sense of perception of time. So how do you know the difference between 5 minutes and half an hour? Again, it's a different sense. And they are about, what are these? They call it, there's 30 other senses to humans that you have that isn't part of the 5. Now, where the story started originally was they were basically look, I love science feeds. That's my absolute favorite. I love reading about new inventions. They actually developed the new generation bionic eyes, cybernetic eyes were developed. And there was actually a case where they think, you know what if we put in a 4th detector, like a fourth color detector in the eye? What will it look like, and how will your brain perceive it? And it basically triggered everything. And then the more you read into it, like the way I perceive the color red might be totally different to the way you perceive the color red. If I took up the brain part where the optic nerve hits my brain, and I swapped it with yours, you might be going, oh my God, that's what he thinks red looks like? Like, the guy's crazy, because your red might be totally different to my red. It's just how your brain wires that up. So you put in a different color, your brain will go, I have no idea how to wire this up. And so that's how it really came about. So now the cool thing about the book is,
let's actually get to the book a little bit, in which
sure.
My understanding is that obviously this is hard science to some degree. It's also a philosophy to some degree. It's also a thought process. And then on top of that, we have that and correct me if I'm wrong. At
Oh,
any
no, no.
point, tell me I'm wrong and tell me to
Oh,
shut up, and I'm more than happy to let you take over. Basically, society has advanced where major technology has allowed people to have augmentations and technology upgrades to their bodies,
yeah,
which extends them beyond what humans are capable of.
correct.
And now what's going on is that we have a war between, I guess, purists, for lack of a better word, and
Yep,
people who like this technology, and
yep,
also their backers. Because
correct.
obviously there's money involved, there's power involved, there's the future involved. There's also the threat of becoming extinct, or one group suppressing another group due to
Yep,
power. A lot of stuff's going on. And then we have a character who basically suffered, an accident and has some of these augmentations and
mm,
is kind of caught up in this entire, I guess, not war, but situation might be a better way how to describe it.
yep,
And now she's dealing with everything, including the accident that happened, her powers, her abilities, and
yep,
also what side she wants to be on in a lot of ways, and
yep,
also becoming a human again. And that's
yep,
why your book is fascinating. I mean, I've read the first one, I'm in the middle of the second one.
yep,
So I don't know what exactly happens in the second one fully, but I also don't want to ruin too much about it. But
yep,
there's a lot of stuff going on, and there's a lot of cat and mouse going on, and a lot
yep,
of shadow stuff's going on, and not everything is revealed at first, but
yep,
it's crystal clear that something, I guess, there's the story on the surface, and then there's the story outside the surface. If
yep.
that makes any sense.
No, and thank you so much for reading the first volume. But the one thing, and again, if for people who do read it, is look, I try to make it that in this story that not one side is. I make it a point that I don't say in this world cybernetics are good or bad. I make it very very clear that I'm not, as the writer, taking a position on that topic. What I'm presenting is I'm presenting, look, there's the group Pure who wants humanity pure. And it really then seems to interact with normal people and how they view what's being told to them. And I always think for any type of discussion in the public sphere, nuanced discussion is absolutely missing. It's absolutely missing. That whatever it tends to be, rightly or wrongly, people tend to go into wedge topics. And if you understand, and I love this to bring it into the book, is that you can see there's certain characters in there who are trying to wedge the topic to go, it's this, it's A, B is wrong, or it's B, A is wrong. What I try to do in the book is I'm going, you know what? It's not. It's A and B from your perspective. And like if you read book one, and I'm happy to spoil a little bit on it. So Rivka is an ex-soldier, and basically she got caught in an accident, and she lost some of her body parts, which have been replaced. But out of that is that her problems are not cybernetic related. In book one, she's facing a divorce. She's trying to get her life in order. And you find that she finds it easier to run away from problems than it is to confront certain problems. Like, look,
I
like
know
in a
all about
battle.
that. 13
Yeah,
years, guys. 13
yeah.
years.
And so for her, it's really interesting that the technology actually has not, she doesn't care. It's for her, it's a total non-topic to her because all her problems, the stuff she has to overcome, has nothing to. And while all these groups are yelling and screaming at each other, she's going, oh, I'm just here to do my job. Just seriously, leave me alone because I'm
Yeah.
facing a divorce. I'm facing this. I'm a functioning alcoholic. She is. Let's face it. That's all. She's a functioning alcoholic, and none of it is related to what the whole world seems to be arguing about. So I did steal a little bit from the X-Men, because with X-Men they had the wedge topics. Mutants are good, mutants are bad, mutants are good,
Yeah,
mutants are
let's
bad.
actually
Yeah,
talk about that. Not the X-Men, but
yeah,
wedge topics. So I have a show
yeah,
called Embolden.
yeah,
And the point of Embolden on this, I guess, network that I'm building out is to deal with controversial topics in
mm,
comics and pop culture. And we don't run away from things.
mm,
I had, last week we were speaking about ownership and why ownership's important. and why you might want to sell something or why you might want to keep it or
Mm,
license it out. And it's maybe not so controversial, but the first episode of this show was talking about AI art. And I got a
mm,
lot of heat on Facebook when I was looking for guests for it. And
mm,
people were sort of making fun of me and kind of attacking me. And then I was on somebody else's show and somebody was snapping at me on that show about this topic. And I was saying, wait a second, how can we have a conversation about something that's coming up if you're going to just dismiss it immediately? And I think it's very interesting because whether you agree with me or not, I think I make some valid points about AI
mm.
art, that it's
Oh,
here to stay.
100%.
And, whether you think it's stealing or not stealing, we need to talk about what it is and what it is not and how it functions in order to protect yourself if you're an artist. You need to understand the problem to protect yourself. Or if you're like me saying, look, I understand that there's a lot of money at stake and this is going to force evolution in many ways. And me and the person who I had on, we had an amazing hour conversation where it was crystal clear we weren't tiptoeing around the issue. And I
Yeah,
think that's something that your book does interesting. And I think at this point, a lot of writers are trying to do it, but I don't know if they're hitting it exactly on the head. I think it's a real problem. I
it's
think,
really hard to write nuance. That I have to. Um, just since you brought it up, um, look with AI, and I just quick touch into AI. And look, by the way, I don't have the answers. I know people say they're stealing and whatever, but let's take the AI bot out of the equation for the time being. Let's just say just me. So a lot of images that, let's say, you know who Jim Lee is. Come on, everybody knows who Jim Lee is. Let's say, and a lot of his work is just out there. Look, I'm not gonna, get a JPEG of Jim Lee's work, slap it onto my book, and start selling it. I know I can't do that. 100%. I know I can't do that, and I think that's morally wrong to do it because it's not my work. But there's a million kids out there right now who are looking at some of Jim Lee's work through the internet, through his posters, even through his website or whatever, and they are drawing and emulating Jim Lee's work. Like you're just going, oh man, I love his work so much. Sketch, 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 and they're basically emulating his style. And I can name, and I don't want to, but you could name a whole bunch of artists who
I'll, I'll
who
throw
base
you, I'll throw you one better.
yeah,
I'll throw you one better. That's
yeah.
what is one of the most famous covers of all time.
The Spider-Man one.
That's one. What's another one that's a Spider-Man cover that's world famous?
Oh, Spider-Man 300. The
Right.
the
Spider-Man
first Venom.
300. Right, Spider-Man 300. Spider-Man 300 by Todd McFarlane. That cover has been emulated in so many different facets. And I mean, people say, oh, that's not stealing. What do you mean? You stole the entire concept and basically changed out numbers and what's in the circle, but you stole the template. And taking out AI art for a second, I mean, you can't sit here and tell me that if you did a variant cover for, I don't know, I'll throw, Gwen Stacy, that's that exact same thing, that isn't a form of stealing. Because it's not that you were inspired by Todd McFarlane. If your art is Todd McFarlane-esque, but it's a brand new character, he has nothing to do it, and you're like, man, this thing looks like the next Todd McFarlane, that's not stealing his art. You're inspired by his art. But if you
Correct.
took his cover and you legitimately did not come up with a new concept on it, that is technically, I don't want to say stealing, but copying,
Yep.
potentially taking a template. And if AI art does the exact same thing, your problem is that something that is not a human did it. But if a human does it, it's okay. And this is where the conversation gets very complicated. And this is where people start feeling uncomfortable.
Yep. I know, no, and I don't have the answers, but exactly like you
Neither do
said,
I.
yeah. So the big difference is like if I'm learning, and look, I do a lot of life drawing, and I do look I do art, but I'm very slow. So one of the reasons I outsource is there's people who are better skilled, better than me out there, 100%. But if you think about it from this respect, that the difference is, and I don't have the answer to this, the difference really is if I started copying Jim Lee, and then not to sell, but just to get his art style or Todd McFarlane's art style. And there's like Greg Capullo, basically based a lot of his work on McFarlane's work, and nobody's thing. He loved his work so much he started modeling a lot of his style against McFarlane's, which is fine. So now if a human does it, like you said, and I spend the next 1 or 2 years practicing, and I suddenly make my own comic with a style similar to Jim Lee's or McFarlane's or whatever, there's no issue with that because I've spent the time 2 years. What AI has done is basically gone, you know what? You don't need to spend the 2 years or however long it takes. I will now do it for you in seconds or minutes. I'll cram all that through it, and then it goes and then it churns. So what happens is it takes away the effort, the human effort that involves in it. Now, if you take technology as removing human effort, hey, look, I'm fine with that because, like, to be fair, the blacksmiths of the world had to go. We had, when cars came, all the blacksmiths went away. But my scary part about AI, and this is what I don't like, is AI is only learning. And now if AI starts to become dominant, and this is the down the track thing, is that will be no new creators. And I want to see new creators come through because I don't want to see artists go the way of the blacksmith. You know what I mean? Where
It's interesting. So I have a challenge to
yeah,
that, where what I think has happened, and this is just my opinion, is that I can go to a comic shop or I could go and I could pull out, and I'll mention 3 companies, maybe 4: Mount Olympus, Big Dog Inc., Zenoscope, and Merc Mac.
yeah,
I think all of those companies are rather similar. Bad Girl Art, really, really good artists. And you can take off the covers also take off the logos, and you could put a bunch of their covers next to each other, and you might not know who did what, but you might say these all look similar.
yeah,
And I think AI art, I don't think it's actually going to eliminate artists. I don't. I think if
yeah,
anything, it's going to eliminate some, because I think it's going to set a new standard. And I said this in the entire, thing that I did maybe, 3 months ago. And I think what it's going to do is that it's actually going to make artists get better, and it's going to force an evolution, because I don't think an AI is going to be able to. I think it can potentially beat, but I think it's also what you're feeding it. And I also think that depending on how much there's so much art out there that it is just the 5th person on the field, not the 4th. And that's what I think artists are terrified of, is saying this thing is going to produce faster. But that doesn't mean I'm going to buy the AI art. It might not resonate. If you give an AI art machine, whatever, 100 images from 10 different artists a piece, it's going to turn something out. And then if that artist does something, you might turn something out different too. And you might like what the AI did. You might like what the other artist did, or you might like both. I don't think it's going to put them out of business. I think what it's going to do is it provides another choice. And I think artists are going to have to get creative, because at this stage, if we look at the Todd McFarlane cover, that's been overplayed immensely. And I think that's the problem, is that there's no new ideas coming in. And I think AI art is going to spark that. And that was one of my big arguments, saying, look, there needs to be competition for growth.
And look, if it does, and look, we can probably see a couple of years down the track, see the full impact of it. But my sticking point would really be is it's a tool that has basically cut out the years. So the years of a person copying a Jim Lee and learning that style or whatever, the AI bot just does it in minutes, and minutes, or if fast enough, it might be in seconds.
Yeah.
And that's the terrifying thing for a lot of people, that you remove all that effort and you remove a potential pool of creativity that a lot of the artists will go, you know what? What's my incentive to learn? But exactly like you said, it will spark the top of those artists to go, I will need to work harder.
It's going to say we're getting our asses kicked. We need to bring the fight back.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that, is sometimes lost. I mean, look, as I go back, you're a wrestling fan, right?
Yeah.
When
I am.
WCW was beating the crap out of WWE, WWE created Stone Cold Steve Austin. They created, the Undertaker started doing stuff. You had The Rock, you had Kurt Angle, you had all these guys coming out of nowhere saying we need to fight back and push back. And after a while, they were like, "Oh man, we're getting destroyed here. This sucks." And that's what I think needs to happen. And it's I could be wrong. It cannot play out that way. And I'm the first person to say, but I think it will play out a little bit like that minimally. And that's what I want to see, because I don't want to see this end. I want to see it get better. But I don't know how to do that organically. And I feel like we need something else to come into play. And I think this is like, I've been on a bunch of shows talking about this. And I think that also, when we get back to the nuance thing, somebody has to be willing to listen.
Look, and that's where the nuance comes in really importantly, because like I said, it's a new tool. It's scary. It might not be the best tool. And look, I much prefer to see artists keep doing art, keep in business, that's important to me. But I can also say that a lot of it is, if a tool makes something easier and life goes on, is it all good? And I know there's all the nuance about saying images are being stolen to be fed into it. But a lot of those images are what they call, like, for example, if I wanted to learn how to draw like Jim Lee, and again, AI to the side, if I want to learn how to draw like Jim Lee, I will find a million Jim Lee references out there. Like, it will take me the whole of 2 seconds to find all this million Jim Lee references. The difference is it will take me years to learn. It'll take the AI bot minutes. And I think that's where a lot of discrepancy comes, where what's the end result? Like you said, and again, I don't know the end result. Your end result could be it kills the artistic community, everybody. And, we go to a place where everything is just prefab, pre-generated, and it's a horrible, horrible place. Or, like you mentioned, Endgame comes and, hey, the cream has risen. AI just deals with the dredges of art, and the top are still being recognized as the best they are. I don't know. Too early.
Also, the other side of this is that it also raises a question, because everybody that I've spoken to has a different view on this. Where some people say, I don't really care. I care about the monetized side of it. Where if you're taking an image from, J. Scott Campbell, he should get a royalty on that AI, what it generated out of. Or Marvel, if they own that, should get a royalty. Yeah. And I've heard that argument saying, I don't have a problem. I have a problem with people not getting paid.
The royalty section goes really, and again, if you play the logistics, and this is where, like most arguments, you need to get very, very specific, if you can imagine. So, J. Scott Campbell.
This whole conversation with me and a bunch of you, it's been going on for like 6 months, guys. Like, this has been going on for probably 500 hours. So I'm making and it's fun between me and a bunch of my friends, because we're all playing a game with each other and having a good time, having an adult conversation. But sorry to cut you off, but continue.
Oh, no. Look, by the way, I like nuance. I absolutely like nuance, and things need to be specific. So it then tracks back to, okay, the AI took Campbell's art and fed it in and generates said images. Now, if you're going to royalty that, then you've got to go back to who J. Scott Campbell's influences are. When you homage somebody else's cover, you pay no royalties for that. It's just me saying, I like it so much, I'm going to follow that style. Now, again, you got to remember, everything needs to be specific. So if you remove the AI bot out of the equation and I follow the artwork, do I need to kick back to you? And if I do need to kick back to you, how much do I need to kick back to you? What contracts need to be signed before I kick back to you? And you can imagine then the logistical nightmare that opens up. And now you can go back. Now you take a step back. Oh, wait, I homage your cover, but your cover was actually influenced by something that was done by another Batman artist, or that Batman artist loved this guy's style so much. And then if you keep going back, you go, well, Batman was based off Da Vinci, when a lot of Da Vinci's old drawings were inspiration for Batman. So do we go all the way back to Da Vinci's estate?
It's
Look,
all complicated.
you can imagine. And that's where, and it's the when you start getting the specifics involved, it starts getting a bit silly. Now, if you remove that AI bot from the equation, and it was just me learning Jim Lee style, and then I get a job drawing Andrew your wrestling comic, and because I've learned Jim Lee style really well, you can say, hey, look, I can see you like Jim Lee a lot. I love your work. Hey, do I need to kick back to Jim Lee? And the answer is no, because I've learned over 2 years or whatever long to learn the
It's
style.
so tricky. It's so tricky. And
Do we
again,
have the answer? I don't have the answer. I'm just saying how complicated it is if you open that can of worms. Now, if we leave the can of worms unopened, then you go, okay, you fed the images through, that's on you. Then the question comes through to, does that mean that no artist is allowed to look at somebody else's work to learn? Because again, remove the bot from the equation. The bot just does things a million times faster, which is scary. Look, I don't
and,
have
and,
the answer to
and
all
you could
that.
even go further and raise another question: is that does that mean an artist can never commission a character they don't own? You're at
Yeah,
a Comic Con. I have a commission by Elias Chazuz of Van Helsing.
yeah,
Now, Zenoscope happens to like that cover that Chazuz did. It's a beautiful cover, but he drew it and he did it in Copic marker.
yeah,
And they have a good relationship with him. He's one of their like artists that they work with all the time. So I don't think they would have had a problem. But also, there's an unspoken rule, right? But if we start opening up those, can of worms,
yeah,
does that mean that somebody can't create original art, do a sketch of a character, and then sell that sketch? And it raises a lot of questions. And this is the whole problem: is that once you go with AI art, then it's going to go downward to regular art, and then it's going to be a disaster. And then all of a sudden, you're going to have real problems later on. And I think a lot of people, what they want to do is they don't want to talk about this. They don't want to get very specific, and they're terrified because once you start going through this, it becomes a disaster. And I am for AI art. I've been very crystal clear on it, but I'm also pro AI collectively.
yeah,
It's not just AI art. I find AI art just to be the sideshow
yeah,
on what AI is. And it's just a byproduct. It's kind of like how rum was created, where they were trying to create sugar, and the excess of the sugar, when it was churned and heated up, became rum.
yeah,
And that's how rum was developed. And so
yeah,
that's the whole thing, is that rum is a byproduct of sugar processing.
yeah. Look, but my stake in this, I am pro artist, pro creator. And I understand that AI is scary and all the rest of it. But like I said, I don't have the answer right now. But I want an outcome at the end which favors the artist. Look, and by the way, I'm putting problems up which I don't have the answers to, but I want the final solution to be something that is beneficial to the artist. Like you said, it could end up that AI becomes stock, like the stock photos of the world. You can imagine there's millions of stock photos. AI becomes the stock photos of the world, and artists become the cream of the world. It could end up that way.
It
So
could be a shit test. It could be a shit test. Is
yeah,
that, are you better than this AI thing? And it could be a challenge, and it could be the bar, and
yeah.
it could
So
be that this is the standard now, and AI sets the standard, and are you above it or are you below it? And if you're below it, you got to get better.
yeah, as long as it's a final outcome that is beneficial to the creator, to the artist out there, that's the outcome I want to see. And how do we get there? Oh, seriously, bugger if I know. I don't have a solution.
And the reason why I bring this up is
Yeah,
that because your entire book deals with cybernetics, it deals with
mm,
all this stuff, it deals with a
mm,
character dealing with a lot
mm,
of complicated things. And this is the perfect book to talk
mm,
about this issue in certain ways. And to even go further into your book, I mean,
mm,
obviously, she is dealing with stuff, she's acting as a bodyguard to
yeah.
somebody who I think is very pro augmentation.
But I submitted that the thing is, although he's pro augmentation, he's doing it for the grants. He's a professor. He needs it to maintain what he does. So in terms of where he truly, and this is a hint for the next book, where does he truly lie? Does he truly believe in it, or does he want the next bit of grants, because I think in book two, when you see it, is he's starting to get some grants for some probably some sources he shouldn't get grants from. And then it starts to delve into, you know what, are you really doing this? Well, why are you really doing this? Because I know you need to fund your lab, but it opens up those moral conundrums, why? And then there is a dollar discussion there for him. He says he freely admits, I need the grant money or my lab shuts down.
It's interesting, which that I mean, I was speaking with somebody. I was speaking with Arvid Nelson, I think is his name, and I love Arvid. He's great. He did Rex Mundi and a few other things. And we were talking about writing, and sometimes writing, you will write something that is not good, but will sell, and it's a piece of crap. But guess what? You gotta pay your rent next month. You gotta make sure that you can eat. You got to make sure that the lights stay on, or you have a passion project you want to do. So you'll go write another comic for DC and Marvel or whoever, pull in $6,000, and that'll get you to fund your passion project. Yeah. And this is very much that same moral issue. And obviously he's being targeted. And it's very interesting where we're going with this entire thing, because now you have to say, why am I doing this? Or did he just get so caught up that he cannot get out, and there's no getting out because he's now become a pawn in somebody else's game? Obviously, Rivika is also a pawn, and now she's got questions. He's got questions. Everybody's got, something going on, and now everybody's dirty, for lack of a better word.
And I really hope the people who read it take it at that level. And I know we went into a nuanced discussion, but that's what I really enjoy writing, nuances where it could have been really easy to take one position. And I think that's actually where could have been really easy in terms of the writing of this to go one position's right, one position's wrong. It could have been cybernetics is the best thing, and everybody else is crazy.
That's interesting. I'm going to challenge you on that a little bit. Here's why I'm going to challenge you on that. Yeah. And I'm gonna use something that's a hot button issue.
Yeah, sure.
I actually think it's very dangerous if somebody did a pro or anti-abortion comic and made the argument that instead of making it gray, they went black and white. And I think to some degree, when you pick a side and you write it, and that you have opposition to that side, but you say, look, this is the right side and this is the right side of history, I think that's actually very, very dangerous. And I think that might be
very polarizing. And it's dangerous, yes and no. It becomes what they call very exclusionary.
I think it's let me revise my statement. Yeah, sure. Making it so that it's not polarizing. So I'll give an example. If you can figure out a way how to make a character, we'll use abortion as an example, saying that they were 100% pro-life, right? Mm-hmm. And that, but they're likable and they're saving kittens. But then there's a situation where they're morals, but you're like them and they don't polarize. And there's been books like that have done it really well. And that, 90% great, 10% polarization versus 90% polarization, 10% great. There's books that are 90% polarization. I mean, Mike Barron's been on this show. Thin Blue Line is a very polarizing book. The Private American is a very polarizing book. I mean, we got to call it what it is. Just because, I enjoyed Thin Blue Line, I'm probably going to enjoy The Private American. I think it's well written, and I think it's a good book. Doesn't mean it's not polarizing. But that's my point, is that I think something like Civil War Captain America, in a lot of ways, especially with the Punisher and his positions, is very much that not polarizing point of view. And I think it can be done. But but I agree with a good part of what you're saying, is that making it so that it is gray is also a skill.
Yeah, look, and that's what I actually do enjoy about it. Look, it's still an action comic, so it's still a lot of fun. There is a couple of really fun sequences. And the thing is, look, if you want my take, my personal take is technology. And I love the aspect of technology to make people's lives better. And in terms of what transhumanism goes, it's a really, really fun topic if you ever read into the literature behind it, in terms of what they're trying to achieve. Like, you've heard so many stories. I think there was one really story that melted my heart a lot, was when Robert Downey Jr. presented a kid who was missing an arm.
I know this. I know this one. This
You know,
was
this
great.
with a bionic arm, which was like the Iron Man arm, and I was going, oh wow!
No.
Like,
He didn't present it. He didn't present it. Tony Stark presented it.
oh, of course, I know, but how awesome is that? And to see, and this is my position on this one, is to see people's quality of life being improved by all this. It's fantastic. And the more stories and that's actually one of the inspirations. And like I said, one of the first inspirations was basically pushing humanity to the next part of evolution, but actually improving quality of life. When I saw it, it was like, oh man. So I think I actually have written the story further down. There is a sequence where the preacher character meets a little girl who got into an accident, and she's been augmented with legs. And he finds it very hard to say to her, you know what? God took your legs away, you shouldn't be running. And he can't be in that position to do so because she's happy. And there is a happiness that she can run again, she can play with her friends again. And so I love that type of moral conflicting things, especially in the characters who are meant to have these hardline positions. But like, when you read the book, the preacher is a good man. Like, take away what his stance is on cybernetics is. He's a good man. He cares about his people. He worries about situation. Like, I want him to be almost like, you don't see it that much anymore, but the priest of the small town, the person who knows everybody, who knows everybody's problems, and he's a type who doesn't just come out and go, I'm going to fix your problem for you. He's the kind of guy who goes, he nudges you in the right direction, and at the end of it, you do the right thing. And then he'll go, yeah, I knew you were going to do that. And you know, that type of character. So I think actually, I'll spoil it, further down the track, he actually sees a situation where his worldview is totally shattered, but he understands he's the type who wants to help people. And like, you can kind of say he works the soup kitchens, he does all that good, happy stuff. And he's trying to now morally and then he starts to say, hey, look, if I use cybernetics as a weapon, oh, that's bad. But maybe cybernetics for certain situations, not so bad. And I love it. I actually do like this type of situations where, and the great thing about a topic like this is it's a topic that's so that you can kind of relate to other topics just in terms of understanding nuance. And I think the world would be a lot better place if people could understand, you know what? Not everything is that crystal clear. And I love it. I love that. And to be really fair, the all X-Men used to do it so well. You had the X-Men who are branded as terrorists and all the stuff. And then you got poor Scott Summers going, I'm just trying to save you guys. I'm just trying to save you from whatever world-ending threats coming next. I'm just trying to save you guys. And after I save you guys, you throw rocks at me. It's like, dude, back off. Yeah, I pick on Scott Summers because Scott Summers is probably one of the most picked on X-Men character. He's the one who gets slagged the most. And he's actually one of my favorite X-Men. Mainly because, again, a quick aside, he has to take that leadership role a lot. And the buck kind of stops with him all the time. So poor Scott Summers is the one who, and even Xavier, if you read the early X-Men, Xavier really roast Scott so much. If you read the earlier Stan Lee writing, it's like Xavier, I think that's one time Xavier was going, you know what, you don't deserve Jean Grey. You're whatever. And it's like, dude, how could you say that? This is your top student, and you're just slagging him off all the time. So if you ever get bored, read the early X-Men, and I think there's a meme of Xavier picking on Scott Summers, and it's just basically Xavier roasting Scott Summers.
I
don't know if you heard that one.
I don't know the X-Men as well as I should. Yeah. I am a big Rogue fan. I think she's great, and I have something coming out that I can't talk about regarding her for my eBay store, but I can't talk about it right now but it'll be out in June, guys. It'll be out in June, and it's going to be hot. And I mean hot. And it's going to be fun, guys. But I can't talk about it, but I like her. I like X-Men 171 when she
Mm.
joins the team. I'm actually looking to read that book back, but that's not the point. But yeah. I need to go back and read the X-Men, especially the early stuff. But
Oh, definitely.
the other
Um,
thing I want to dive into with this too is that throughout this entire process, Rivika is figuring out what makes her human again,
yeah.
as well, despite having this cyber stuff
Mm.
and the augmentations. And I think it's really interesting, that entire thing too, because she's being exposed to a lot of different viewpoints. There's a cover that may or may not grant something and suggest something, and
Mm.
relationships and things of that nature, because in many ways she feels that she has been dehumanized. And it's
Mm.
fascinating because that's the other side of this story too, beyond the proxy war that's ensuing and
Yeah.
the shadow stuff and the different viewpoints. It's also saying, hey, what makes us human? Because
Mm.
being born, and it's going to sound weird, and it's very meta to some degree, but just because I'm born human doesn't mean I'm human. And it raises questions on what can be human, what can't be human. What does human emotion mean? What does it mean? Is her being, because she's been very robotic, due to everything that she's dealt with. And now we're starting to see, towards the end of volume 1 and even in volume 2, okay, she's got some emotions back now. And
Mm.
is it being human? Does that mean anger? Does it mean love? Does it mean that you just like your coffee,
Yeah.
mild temperature? Like, what does it mean? And that's what also is being explored heavily in these
Oh,
graphic
oh,
novels.
you picked it. So if that's why I call Volume One Rivka's story. So it's if you take everything else away, it's basically her story. And again, there's other characters and other plot lines moving through, but again, at its pure core, it's just about somebody trying to find her humanity again. And I'm really glad you picked that up because um, it was fun to write. It was really, really fun to write. And volume two explores that a lot more. And you basically find out a lot about her. And for her, it's a lot that she has to figure out herself. And let's face it, as far as we go, we haven't figured half our stuffs out. Like, I haven't figured out half my life at this point, to be really, really fair. And I would challenge most people to say, look, I'll give you a high school example. Like there was when most people graduated from high school and think, what I want to finish up next. I went to high school. I think there were like 300 kids in my year. So there's about 300 people graduating about the same time. And you ask them, what do you want to do? I want to become a carpenter. Some want to do a trade. Some want to do university and all the rest of it. But whenever you talk to most of these things, you can kind of hear a little bit of society being parroted back to them. And look, to be fair, when they asked me, I had an answer of what I wanted to do. But if you ask me if you really knew me back then, like I'm not an acquaintance, but if you were one of my closer friends, I would really go, I have no idea. I have no idea what I want to do. And then you start talking, this option is probably the safest option. This option is the best career path. This option has this. This option, you will graduate from university in 2 years. The trade will take a year and a half, but I can earn money on the second year. You start actually just weigh out pros and cons. There was only out of the 300 people I knew in my year, there was only one person that I personally knew very well who knew what he wanted. This beyond shadow of a doubt. This isn't just balancing pros and cons and picking the least worst option, if you will. He wanted to become an architect. If everybody was really interested, but he was the only one out of 300 who that's what I want to be. That's I want to draw buildings. I want to design this, and he was passionate about it. And to be fair, most people don't have that, and so half Rivka's thing is she doesn't know what she wants. Nobody knows what she wants. They really want. You might find that 1 in 300 person who goes, "This is what I want to do," and
I have a friend. I have a friend who knew he wanted to be a civil engineer,
yeah,
and he's a civil engineer, and he's happy. He knew he wanted it. He likes it. He's
yeah,
into it. He's into all sorts of weird stuff that's regarding engineering,
yeah,
and He knew he wanted it. He went out, he did it. He had a great time. He did it in like 5 years. He got like a master's in engineer, and he's great. And but I know that I knew one thing when I graduated high school. I knew I was going to do something in political science, and I knew that I pursued that, and I accomplished that for a little bit. And I knew that, but then obviously I made a career change, and there you go. And I'm pretty happy in my career change. I work in compliance, which is definitely my background governmental wise, but I don't work for the government. But, if you told me that, oh man, I would have done, where I'm at right now, I would have told you that you're crazy. But I also knew that I wanted to be financially free when I was 18. And I'm slowly working towards that. And I'm going to probably get at a minimal level of that, probably in the next 5 years, where
That's
my
fantastic.
investments and my businesses are probably going to match my salary that I have at my job in the next 3 to 4 years, which is awesome. I knew that, but I didn't know how I was going to do it. But that's more of a philosophy.
Yep.
But I knew that was going to be achieved at some point before I was 40.
And that's fantastic.
I'm 30. So yeah,
that's absolutely fantastic. But the challenge, you knew that one guy who's a civil engineer. How many of your friends, beside that civil engineer, which you go, had their passion figured out? Even yourself, you've got and look, to be fair, most people want to live carefree lives, and you have your, a steady income stream. And that's absolutely fine. Everybody needs to live. But I think you'll be hard pressed to find many people,
agree.
who actually know.
I know another person. I know another person who makes a living as a writer, and she was in my class, and she was passionate about writing, and she makes a good living as a writer, and she publishes stuff all the time, and I know her. But I was in a class of like 278 people. Those are the only two I can think of. So
exactly, it's like 1 in 300.
It's so minuscule. The others, I mean, they have passions, but they're not doing well with their passions are.
No, I know a lot of people, and talking about the money side of it. There's a lot of people I've talked to who says, exactly like you said, I want to retire, or I want to be financially independent by X year, and that's an absolutely fantastic goal to have. But the difference between that's a philosophy. Like, some of them will go, what's the best way to do it? I'll go into real estate. I'll do this. I'll go into tech. I'll go into whatever.
It's different than somebody saying, I want to teach people how to become financially free, and then go and then like do it at like the age of 23. They build classes, or they build seminars, or they work for Morgan Stanley in like retiree income, whatever. And that's their passion. And then they knew when they were 18 saying, I love money and I want to teach you how to be financially liberated. That's different.
That's correct.
I want to teach that too, but that's not what I was when I was 18.
Exactly. And back to TransHuman, though, it's just really a case of, guess what? You know what? That's why I tend to, the superhero genre is very interesting to me, because if you know the stats that all this comes through, I always think, if you got superpowers, and I love this as discussion, if you never were wanting to be the super uber crime fighter, Batman, save the world type person, and you got superpowers, it doesn't automatically precipitate that that's the passion you want. And that's why they always have, in most comics, they have to throw the trauma in. And that's why I kind of like Spider-Man, the origin. And again, I know the origin has changed multiple times, but they kept the base origin the same. That when he got his powers, it wasn't a case of, I'm going to start saving the world. It was only the trauma of losing Uncle Ben. Spoiler alert, it's been since the 1960s. So actually, if you don't know this, I haven't spoiled it for you.
My favorite moment was in Action Comics, and it was a reflection of when Superman was a kid, and the Kents were raising him, and the bank pulled and recalled their neighbor's tractor because he didn't make like a payment on it. So Superman went against the morals of Jonathan Kent, took the tractor, put it on the bank's roof. And the point I'm trying to bring is that you could tell that that's the real Superman right there. You
Oh,
could tell
definitely.
that Jonathan Kent was not very happy with his adopted son, but he wasn't angry. And you could tell that it was just epic because it's the idea that maybe Superman didn't want these powers and he has to hold back all the time. He doesn't want to hold back, but he got a chance to do something righteous with
Mhm.
it, and it's fallen in that vein. And he knew he wasn't going to get caught for doing that, but he can't throw the ball and be on the football team.
Yeah, look, that was actually a really good animation movie where basically he was I can't remember the name of it, but what happened to I'll dig it up. But the premise basically is there's a whole bunch of other UK superheroes who are basically they just goad him, they just keep pushing him, pushing Superman until you find out his entire life he's just been holding back. Every punch he's ever thrown has been held back. It was an animated movie. It was based off a Jewish comic book.
There's a scene. There's a scene. I don't know if you've read Superior Spider-Man.
I have read Superior Spider-Man, yeah.
Right. You know the scene I'm talking about where, for those who don't know, I'll give some backstory. Peter Parker and Doc Ock were fighting, and somehow Doc Ock figured out how to switch bodies with Peter Parker, and then Doc Ock died with Peter inside of it, and then Doc Ock becomes Spider-Man. And now he's acting and he's fixing every error. So there's some funny things where he's like, "You don't have a PhD. Well, we got to change that." And then Doc changing Peter Parker as getting him a PhD. You get him doing stuff, and then he realizes that he almost kills somebody as Spider-Man. He's like, "Oh snap! All these years, Peter has been holding back against me."
I remember that. And I love it. I love that idea that um
Brilliant writing,
I,
brilliant. Arguably Dan Slott's best writing ever. That
the
scene.
I want to I want to show you my absolute passion, and I'll show you this one. If I can share, I'll send you a screen share. It's just an image. Let me pull this one up. So this is something I did on for another creator, and so this is the lettering I did. And for someone like me to see something come to life in this way, if you're talking about passion, and I mean, if I had enough that lettering could basically cover all my bills. It unfortunately it doesn't. It helps a lot, like cover all my bills. I think it would be fantastic. But um, basically, the script didn't break all the stuff apart, but it allowed the whole breakup, and it didn't have SFX, so I could basically have my own thing to it. But to bring a scene to life like this is my passion. This is something I want to see, and so in TransHuman, I do all the lettering, and so for me, it's. I hope when you guys, if you back it and you do read it, I hope you actually see the amount of choices I make and the amount of decisions that get done, because it's a passion of mine, and I hope when people actually do read stuff which are passion driven, that they can kind of say, hey, look, this is so cool, because you can kind of see the creator cares. Like I'll go through pages multiple times to go, oh, if I move that slightly left, slightly right. And I also do a couple of videos, and I have to admit, doing videos drives me bonkers, because when I'm like, you think a 30-second video, oh, it's done and dusted, it could be quick. But for me, I am coming down to the microsecond time scale to go, well, the beat hits boom. So I need the scene change to hit on that beat. Oh, wait, it might be slightly better. The scene change happens slightly before the beat, when the next. Oh, wait, it's better after the beat. And I will spend an hour time scaling that little video back and forth until I go, you know what, screw it. I've made my decision. It sits here. But for me, but you can tell when people are passionate for stuff. So that's what I love.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, I love it, and obviously it's very very cool, and I agree. And I'm not a video editor, and I edit content for micro content, but I'm not that intense. But I do want to show and talk about rewards. I
Yeah.
do want to talk about rewards because you got a bunch of them, and they're really cool.
So
Um,
Yeah, I'm happy to look. The reward structure is actually pretty simple. So I'd like to keep things simple. Number one, you have the digital section, which is digital comics. The other thing I do for the digital section a lot is, especially when we're back in digital, there is a lot of digital comics that I included, and you're talking more than 300 pages to read of additional digital images, comics, different people. I try to keep it a little bit eclectic. Like I do try to kind of match it the with transhuman. But on the whole, like there's sorcery in there. There's one about ancient Egypt in there. It's I just basically try to give people a good range, um, and it gives the value on the digital comic side, so that you don't just get um, transhuman to read. You get all this other stuff to read. There's the usual print copies, which we do. There's also then it comes to print. There's cards, there's all bits and pieces. There's variant covers as well. So the rewards, I think, in terms of the actual physical rewards, I believe there are 6 or 7 items you can pick from. My backers have been absolutely fantastic, and all the original art tiers have now been spoken for, unfortunately. So if that's of interest to you, I am sorry they're all gone, but there are some original sketches if you want sketch work that's
Yeah,
still
yeah.
available.
Let's actually show some of this stuff because
Yeah,
these are
sure.
some of the covers. So there's this one right here,
Yep,
which is more of a chibi feel to it.
yep,
This one's pretty cool right here too.
yep,
And then there's this,
yep.
which
So
may or may
that's
not suggest
yep,
something going
yep,
on.
yep. It's
It
look.
is.
Oh, by the way, I do want to touch on that topic actually. So that's actually an interesting topic to touch on, especially for writers, especially from a writer point of view. It's if you decide on this topic, um, gore, ultra violence, or nudity. As soon as you do one of those things, you change your audience. And 100% it was a decision to be made to change the audience or affect how the audience reacts if you take one of those three things. It's basically moving a movie from PG to MA or to R. It's a conscious decision that you have to make. The decision I have to make, and again, I'll throw it to all creators to think about this. You will exclude your audience, a certain portion of your
Without a
audience.
doubt, without a doubt. I mean, I don't know how much you know about my show,
Yeah,
and I don't know how much you know about my business on
yeah,
eBay. I sell a lot of Zenoscope books.
yeah,
I don't really sell their Z-rated or their nudity covers for a reason.
yeah.
That doesn't mean that I'm anti that. That doesn't mean I'm not getting
Oh
into
no,
that
you
segment.
you pick your audience, and that's something that's totally understandable. But in terms of the writing for this, and I'm giving you guys from a writer's perspective, it has to fit the context of the story. That for me is my number one question. Can I tell the story in a particular way without a particular scene? Now, imagine Deadpool at PG violence, not the same movie. Like you couldn't do it. Like it's really in context of the story, and if like that's why Ryan Reynolds basically, I think they initially offered him a Deadpool PG movie, and he basically said, guys, go screw yourselves. There's no way this movie could be what it is, the way we envision it. If you put these handcuffs on me, if you say you gotta make it PG-13, you gotta do this, the movie would not be a Deadpool movie. It just wouldn't. Um, so in that context, it was actually a really I'll be honest with you, it's a decision I had to make to say story first. And when you guys do read it, I hope you can kind of understand why that decision was made to move the story in that direction. It's all in context of the story. So again, there
So yeah,
is
to even go further into that, I mean, this is one of the things too is that, and I'll bring up Zenoscope, and I think it's really important is that they have a lot of Z-rated covers, a lot of promiscuous covers, but they sell, and that's a business model too, and that's a
yeah,
conscious decision. Their stories don't reflect their covers sometimes, and
correct.
so it's a very interesting thing, and it's a very interesting topic to go into because, well, you could have a nude cover, a regular cover, a very promiscuous cover, and sometimes you got to do what's good for the business. If I know X is going to sell, I'm going to maybe put that on a cover. And even though it might not necessarily have to do with the story, if I know people want it. And so that's tricky too, because when you go into something like this, I mean, obviously you're going into a particular direction, but you do have this type of cover.
Yeah.
And this does sell in a lot of ways. And it's a
It's
good
actually not the most popular variant covered, by the way. Just as an interesting point, it's the first one, the Abri one. The one with the not the chibi one. This one is actually the most popular one so far. Um, but that's actually where, as a creator, I make it a point that, hey, guess what? The story does reflect that. So in the variant covers, not safe for work versions, it is actually part of the story. So I make it a point that if a direction gets taken where where you have to alter your audience a little bit, it has to fit the story. And my only thing would be is please read the story, because it really, I hope when you do read it, it makes sense of why it's important for the story. It's like if it could be fully excluded from the story and it's just as good, I would always say to most creators, what? You don't need the ultra violence there. But if it doesn't work,
it's interesting.
hey, it has to be part of it. So the story does reflect it. And in terms of, so it's slightly different from Xenoscope, where let's put a really cool cover and, get the cover to sell. That's fine. And I do understand the thing behind it.
It's an interesting business model, and it
Yeah,
works. And look, they're not
exactly.
the only ones. They're not the only
Yeah,
ones who do it. A lot of people do it on Kickstarter. A lot of people do it. Merc Mag does it. Big Dog Inc. does it. I mean, Mount Olympus does it. A variety of comic companies do it. It's
yeah,
not an exclusive business model, because at the end of the day, if that's what pays your operating costs, you're making a sacrifice to get to the next month or the next year. And sometimes you have to do that. And what you hope for is that you get more than the next year by
yeah.
doing that strategy.
Oh, but because look, you can kind of tell I'm really passionate about the story and as the creator, I make it so that it is a creative decision as well. And look, don't get me wrong, there is a bit of marketing involved. Like, you know what? It appeals to it as much as it pushes a certain audience away. It also will attract a different audience. Don't get me wrong, I understand all that, but my absolute headspace was always, is it in service of the story? And what I really hope when they do read it, they'll go, that wouldn't make the story would not be as strong without this. And I'm being really cagey because I don't want to spoil it. I want it when they read for the first time, they're going to go, oh my God, what happened? Because it is I would say 100% in service of the story. And that would be my take on it. So I really hope when they do read it, there is a bit of shock and awe, because the it's the way the story is told. And I really like how it turned out, the story. And it's all one step back as well. I'll keep jumping back. We don't, as most comic creators will tell you, we don't really do this for the money. Don't get me wrong. We want to make it the money to make this a career so that we can base off it. Don't get me wrong. There's always that. But if a comic creator who wants to start his comic for the first time says, "Oh man, it's a lucrative business. I could be making millions doing this," I would be the first to go, "Oh, I'm really sorry to disappoint you. I think
There's a saying that
you're in the wrong industry."
if you don't have an itch to do comics and you can stop now, you
Yeah,
probably should. If you can't stop, then you're gonna be stuck going through it and trekking through the mud.
yeah,
It's just the way it is. So, like, I don't have an itch to do comics at the moment. So I haven't started, right? The second I get the itch, the second I get the bug, I'm gonna be trekking through the mud, win, lose, or indifferent, right? And I think that's the plight of a comic creator. What you hope is that you push out stuff and people like you, and that you grow and you grow and you grow, and you hope it works. But there's a good chance that you might break even, or you might even lose money, but you have to do it because you love it. If you want to make
exactly.
millions of dollars, you might want to sell comics instead.
Oh, look, it's like the same with writing a book. And look, I'll give you some stats which are very sobering. The average book writer, this is a published book writer who treats this as a full career. I'm giving you Australian stats. I don't have US stats. The average book Australian writer gets paid under minimum wage in Australia to be an author. So if I go to my local census and says, what's your job? I'm a plumber, blah, blah, blah. If you tick author, you are below minimum wage on the average. This is a published author with books in bookstores, in libraries, and all the rest of it. You are under minimum wage. It's granted. So why do they do it? And I'll have to say and I keep harping on this, it's to tell the story. And if I'll be really frank, if I prefer people to and you know what, as a creator, sometimes I get comments going, this was horrible. To be really fair, I don't mind. The one thing that most writers don't want is apathy. That's probably the worst part. How was it? Meh, it was okay. That's the worst comment you can give a writer, to be really, really fair. Because it's okay. Help me out here. Now, if they come back and go, look, I didn't like how this happened. The dialogue here was very stilted, blah, blah, blah. That's all stuff they go, you know what? And if you have a good writer who's constructive or a creator who's very constructive in terms of learning, they'll probably take a lot back and go, you know what? I hear you. I did it this because this was in my head, but I see how you interpret it that way. I can maybe next time get better. And you just keep hope as a creator. You keep telling better and better stories. So that's the big crux about it. That scary enough. I'll also say we don't do this for the money.
Again.
Yeah.
There's a million ways how to make money. I know how to make a lot of money in a lot of different sectors and equity, selling comics.
Don't become a comic writer if you want to be one of those.
Don't become a screenwriter either. Don't become a novelist. Not saying it can't be done, but
there is the top 1%. Don't get me wrong. Like every industry you have, there is the Stephen Kings of the world. You know what I mean? There always will be. There is always going to be the Keanu Reeves of the world. But for every Keanu Reeves, there's probably a million people waiting on your coffee table, waiting for their next big break, which, they'll never come, because how many, like, if you've got a million people waiting for one big break, and there's one big break that happens once a month, the math doesn't give you enough that everybody gets their big break. You know what I mean? Like, so what happens? There's a lot of other industries where the odds are stacked a lot better in your favor to advance, to do well. Comic writing isn't. Like, I'll give you, there's a whole bunch of published comic writers, and again, not naming names or whatever, but published full comic writers who worked on big name books. Every once in a while, you see the GoFundMe or something come up from them going, something's happened. As my fan base, can you please help me? And my heart breaks. Honestly speaking, my heart absolutely breaks, because this. I'll give you one, and I'll drop his name because unfortunately he's passed away. There was a guy called, I'm going to butcher his surname, Norm Belfrog. He was a Batman artist. He passed away a couple of years back. He did some amazing Batman work. But when he passed away, he was like, I need some money to help me with my medical expenses and stuff. And your heart broke, because you're thinking, you were one of the most prolific Batman writers. He wrote he drew a whole stack of issues for Batman, I think Detective Comics actually. And he couldn't cover his medical bills. And you're just going, my big takeout of this is that it's a tough industry, and if you have the passion, absolutely go for it. If, like you said, if you have that itch that you cannot scratch, do it. But if you can all avoid that itch, sometimes it might be better for you to avoid that itch.
Yeah, no, I think it's just that, and I think that unfortunately, if you can avoid it, you should. But obviously, if you're a huge comic guy and that's your thing, so you got to do. But anyway, I want to back out of this, and I want to play my favorite news segment in my show, and it's the tough questions, and the stakes have never been higher. And so this might change your life completely. It may not. but you have to buy one item that I'm going to show you. You have to sell one item, and you have to burn the third. And I don't know if you're ready for it. Are you ready for it?
Let's do it.
So item number one is the Bushwhackers autobiography.
Ooh.
So the Kiwis, your neighbor in country New Zealand, done by the Bushwhackers themselves and John Crowther, who does a bunch of comics. So that's item one. Item two, since we're on cybernetics, is Full Metal Alchemist, not Brotherhood. The first one in Blu-ray, the complete series, wrapped up nicely like this.
Cool.
And then the third item is an item that is parallel to none other. It is a Bushfire Heroes Pop Ultra.
I've got that one. How did you get that one? That was an Australian release. I'm very impressed.
In mint condition, shipped from Australia with no protection.
I am very, very impressed you have that because
it's the back, guys. Look.
I'll give you a bit of history on that pop because I actually do have that pop. So my area, and I'll show you some if after this. Like I won't bother your audience too much. Sydney had horrible bushfires 2 Decembers ago. We're talking about the entire city in a plume of orange. Like seriously, the sky was just orange and red, like constantly. They estimated the wildlife of close to 1 billion different animals dying. It was absolutely horrific. Worst one for like decades. So that pop came out in basically almost like a charity event out of it to say, hey, look, this is how we're going to get the money back. And it helped to a lot of people who were affected by it, to help them out. I actually bought 2, if you want to know, I have 2. I'm just really impressed you have one because it was an Australian only release and it was a charity release. So 2 things. Number one, thank you so much for getting one and basically saying to us down under, you support us. So I have my eternal thanks for that. Thank you for supporting us. And thank you for getting probably one of the hardest pops to get outside of Australia. So thank you so much. Like, it was seriously messed up.
It came across my desk while I was just cruising on Facebook in a Pop Funko group, and I was like, "Cool!" And I think it was $18. I think it was like $10 shipping to the U.S. And I just did it. I didn't have a lot of money at the time. I said, "Okay, cool. I think I'll just do it." And then I didn't hear anything back. I'm like, if I don't get it, no worries. If I get it, great. Took them about 6 months to ship, which is fine. I wasn't concerned either way. And a little nervous though, because I haven't ordered anything international ever before. I ordered something from the UK once, but nothing from Australia. I was like, it might arrive damaged, but that's all right. It's not that big of a deal. Arrived in just the cardboard box, actually, oddly enough. No Funko protector, tight. I open it up, comes perfectly. I ordered something from Illinois like a week before, thing came crumpled. And I'm like, How is this possible? How is this possible that this thing has traveled legitly like 4,000 to 5,000 miles and it arrived nearly perfect? And this thing that has traveled 120 miles arrived damaged.
So what are my choices? Buy, burn, what was the last one?
So you can buy, you could sell it. You buy an item, sell an item, and you have to burn the third. So you can buy one of the items, you have to sell the other, you have to burn the third.
I'm sorry, Bushwhackers. I'm not a huge fan, so that one I have to burn. The one I have to sell would be the Full Metal Alchemist because I don't want to see that go. I actually did enjoy the series, but the one I have to buy would be that pop because number one, like I said, it's something that actually affected my city, and so like I said, seriously, anybody overseas or whatever who has bought this one, thank you so much because it has helped Australia out a lot, and Australia, I don't know if you know, it's not that. It's a fantastic place to live, but there are a lot of extremes in terms. We have the 8 most venomous spiders in the world, the 8 most venomous snakes, um, but as well as a lot of the middle of Australia is all bushland. Like we just decide, you know what, not interested. We want to live on the coast. Nobody wants to live in because it gets crazy hot in there. You're talking like 50 degrees, and there's a rainforest where we haven't explored everything yet. We just got, you know what, let the crocodiles live there. We're happy for them to live there happily because there's a lot of Australia which is just empty. So it's a lot of bushland as well. So, but every once in a while, what is it? Bushfires are actually natural to Australia. So a lot of the plants actually do need a bushfire every so often to release their seeds to the whole cycle to come through. It's just that it's a very horrific time. It happens, they say, these catastrophic bushfires, they say every 10, 15 years. It's just expected. I think California has that type of cycle as well, that there is that bushfire cycle. Again,
there's a saying, and I'm known for saying this, that bushfires, forest fires are necessary. I am there's no secret about my philosophy, my thought process. I believe that, fires are sometimes necessary to wipe out debris, both in forests, and it's healthy sometimes for a forest to, go through a burn cycle, and then also in business too. And so I think that both the metaphor applies both physically and metaphorically, where, obviously sometimes a tree needs to burn down so the smaller tree beneath it can get sunlight and grow into a new tree and be big and strong. But there's a difference also when it gets out of control. Like there's been some bad things in California, and I was at a con in DC. I used to live in DC, and what I was saying is, I said, "Where are people from?" Who's kind of from California? I said, and I said to everybody in the room, I said, "In a few weeks, there's going to be ash that hits DC." Because that's what happens with those fires in California. They do hit New York. They do hit DC. It takes a while, but it's crazy. But yeah, California's been a weird one, and they've had horrible, deadly fires for years now.
I know. So like we hear the news here as well. So, but it's like Australia. It is a known cycle, and I'm assuming that there's a lot smarter forestry people than me and you who actually understand the cycle a lot more. Like you know what I mean? But in Australia, there are certain plants which will not drop its seed until after the fire. It's because it's part of it's just part of the thing that goes after the fire. That's when it dies, is when the seeds get released for new plants to grow. So there's it kind of is what it is. And again, there are much smarter scientists out there who probably know the cycle a lot better than I do.
I just like the Pop Funko guys. That's all I really wanted. I just like.
Oh no! But I'm really happy because it's. That's why I said when I saw that one, I had to go, "Oh man, you have to know the history behind." There's very few Pop Funkos who actually have a full history that I'm aware of. Most of them are, "Oh, that's cool," or "That's nice," but that one, it actually has a full history and story behind it of why it was, what it affected. Most of them is like, "Here's a new Supergirl Funko." It's like, yeah, I like it. It's cool. I'll buy it. But there's no story behind it. This one does have a story behind it. And yeah, it was. Look, like I said, when I bought to support as well. So that's why I said that's the one I had to buy, because I actually physically did buy that one.
Well, we've been speaking for a while. Obviously, we went through a bunch of rewards. I think you got 5 days left, obviously, on this campaign. And I know you're in Australia, so I don't know how you're handling shipping per se, because that's always a concern, and that could be expensive.
I've got a distributor. So what happens would be is they the shipping actually cost has come down almost to my cost level. So to be fair, if I ship into US, I lose a little bit of money for every package I ship to the US. It's something I'm fully happy to accept, because I know that I don't want shipping to be off-putting for people. So please note, I do lose a little bit of money for shipping. But I do have certain mechanisms in place, and happy to discuss this one off there, where the pricing of the shipping.
We don't have to get into it too much. The point
but
the reason why I asked, why I asked, because I'll give an example of what I mean. So I backed a book from Canada, Sister Mercy by Corey Hardiman. and I love
Mm.
Corey, but the book and the shipping are the same price. And
Yeah,
that's a rough pill to swallow
I
where I
can
want
imagine.
to support his book. But if the shipping is $30 and your book was 40, it's like it's $70. And I don't mind spending the $70, but I'm like, I really wish that, I got more for my 40, or I would rather give you $70 and maybe we could have worked something out. Or
Yeah.
maybe if you were doing issues 5 and 6, I could have held off on my issue 5 order and we could have combined it with 6's order. So I only had to pay it once. Because when you're shipping internationally, it sucks for whoever's receiving it, if that makes any sense.
Oh, 100%.
That's that.
100%. So my shipping cost is from Australia, and I've got some secrets I like to keep on this one. But my shipping cost to Australia is almost the same shipping price as what you pay, um, because I can't. I know there's media mail, but excluding media mail, like if you exclude media mail, most packages in the US cost about $9 to ship within US, give or take. Again, state to state varies.
What are you shipping in the US? Like,
Oh no, there's because you got to put it in a box and stuff. So it's about but the
my
ship.
packages to ship in the US cost $12. Like,
Okay, there you go. Like I've been told about $9,
I
but
don't know where all these people are getting $9 US. Now I get $100 insurance on my stuff, but that's included, and I ship through the US Post Office. But my stuff arrives perfectly. I mean, I charge a flat rate on eBay of $11 for a reason, and people criticize me, but I'm like, your book's gonna be perfect when it arrives, and if it doesn't arrive perfectly, it's insured. And you're like,
so,
I get it, but $9, man, I gotta speak to whoever you're speaking to. Like,
but my shipping from Australia to the US is 14 Australian, which is about I would say in US terms about $10-11. That's my shipping cost to the US, and it gets shipped in 7. Look, to be fair, I've learned a lot in terms of shipping. I've gone through a lot of campaigns,
you don't have
and
to go
I've
through all of it. It's all
oh
right.
oh
Point is, I
it's
want
I've
people to feel comfortable. That's the
oh
point
no
here.
I've improved a lot in my shipping. So I'll freely admit my first few packages, this is my 15th campaign. My first campaign, I didn't do a good job. I freely admit, and I deserve all the. It came damaged. It was this. It was this. I freely deserve all that because I didn't know, and I fully acknowledge it. But right now, everything gets shipped in. Um, I don't know if you know about GSM, 700 GSM envelopes. There's
Yeah.
hardboard back. I do all of that now. That it comes to you perfect, perfect. And I've taken my lumps in terms of I didn't do it properly to start off with many moons ago. Um, it's something I have learned. And like I said, I'd rather lose a little bit in shipping, lose a little bit in packaging for you to get it the way it was meant to. And my usual thing is, even if you do all that, it just takes a courier who decides, I don't like you very much, to step on the parcel, to step on the box, or to physically bend the box or whatever. And it doesn't matter if you ship it Gemini mail or whatever. If a particular postman decides to try to jam a Gemini mailer through a mailbox, it doesn't matter how good the mailer is, it will break. Like, it's if I'd always say to anybody, if that happens, there's no blame on you. Write back to me and I will fix it. I will 100% fix it. I will not until you get a copy which you're happy with. It's me to fix it for you, and I take that very serious. And there's people who went back to me and said, "Oh, look, you shipped it really well. It just got damaged on the way." And going, "What happened?" "Oh, it looks like someone stepped on it." I'm going, "Oh, God damn it! Give me your detail. Let me know. I'll fix it up for you." So as much, even if you ship, like Andrew, you probably know, you can ship your stuff. If your mailman decides he's out to get you, they'll break the parcel.
I'll say something that's going to sound slightly offensive. I've learned a very valuable lesson, and it's happened twice, and I can't prove it's just anecdotal, that if I ship anything to New Jersey, I insure it for $150 regardless of price, because I've had packages get lost in Jersey. And for whatever reason, they don't get lost in Florida. They don't get lost in Illinois. They don't get lost in California. They get lost in New Jersey. And I get $100 automatic insurance for this reason. But I've learned a valuable lesson. I can't prove it. It's just the way it is. Where certain states, I just think, and it's not politically, I have no evidence. I just only have evidence that I know of, that I know there's going to be a problem with that state. And it sounds crazy and it sounds weird. It sounds like a conspiracy theory, but I don't need to learn a lesson a third time.
That's fine. So people buy from international. Basically, the main point would be shipping off the physical copy is very, very, very fair in terms of pricing. I've made it so that if you want the physical copy, the shipping is not cross prohibitive. So you're not going to pay more in shipping than the book is worth. You're actually paying about half. So a single issue, a single volume, which is a trade paperback, the shipping is 14 U. Again, I need to check. I think it's either $14 or $15. So I can't remember what it is, and unfortunately, I wish I could bring it lower, but that's already me losing a bit of money on each package. But I much prefer you to get a physical copy than to worry about shipping being an issue.
Yeah, and then finally, I'm going to give you a chance to self-promote. Obviously, you got a lot of stuff going on. Where could people find the Kickstarter? Where could people find your social media? Where could people find everything that you do? Because you don't just have this thing. You obviously have a lot of other stuff going on. And so where could people check out everything that you do?
The main thing to check out would be if you type I'm TransHuman as one word in the Kickstarter. That's probably the Kickstarter I'm pushing the most at this point. Like I said, I got 4 days to go, so please do check it out. I really appreciate if you take a look, and if it is of interest to you, any support would be great. Otherwise, look, I'm not that big on Instagram or Twitter. It's not something I use too much. But if you look for Sigmate, Sigmate Studio, one word, on Facebook, you'll find the page. I do try to keep it up to date as possible. So the main thing would be, if you really want the latest and greatest, go to that page, drop me a quick message. I'll add you to my mailing list. And that's usually where all the coolest stuff I release information-wise gets sent out. And look, and thank you so much for having me on. Like, it's been a blast, and I know we've got into some interesting segues and topics, but yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and I'm actually really glad that we could discuss some of the more contentious topics, if you will, because I think it's important to understand that despite the topic, the end goal is usually most people will agree in the end goal that the world's a better place out of this, or like, if you that's exactly what people want, or you get the best story or the best whatever, and it's how you get there sometimes that's the nuance. But thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
And then I'm going to just keep saying it. I've been saying it for almost 4 years now. You have to support what you love, and you have to support indie comics and whatever that comic is. If it's this book, if it's somebody else's book, if you want to see more of it, you need to financially support it, and you need to back people's Kickstarters, or go to their web stores, or go to their eBay stores, or go to their Shopify stores, or wherever else they're selling, Etsy, wherever else they're selling. You need to go and actually buy those books. Or if they're at a con, you need to go buy those books, because when you buy those books, it lets them know that, hey, I have more money coming in and you want more of this content. And furthermore, when somebody has more money, they can produce something faster, better, longer, and all that jazz. Furthermore, you need to follow people on social media, and you need to engage with them on social media, because that also lets people know, and it lets publisher knows, it lets distributors know, it lets a variety of other entities that are necessary know that, hey, there's interest in this item or this comic. And so that's something to keep in the back of everybody's head too. And then as far as I'm concerned, I got a bunch of stuff going on. Obviously, my social media is Pop Anime Comics on Twitter, Pop Anime Comics on Instagram, Pop Anime Comics on Facebook, Pop Anime Comics on YouTube. And I'm doing anywhere from 3 to 6 interviews a week across various sectors. So there's an interview for everybody to watch. Up on YouTube is always free to watch on YouTube, Facebook, anywhere else where you can catch an interview. Furthermore, if you'd like to advertise on my show, my ad rates are actually up there. And, it's very interesting, and we can work something out If you're interested, my email's up there as well. It's andrewedavis@hotmail.com. You are more than welcome to shoot me a message there, or you can shoot me a message on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, whoever else. And hopefully I'll catch it, see it, because sometimes I don't. But yeah, that's everything I got. I also have a t-shirt out there. I have Buy Me a Coffee if you would like to support independent media as well. And yeah, that's pretty much everything that I got going on right now with me. I don't have a comic at the moment, but never say never, and who knows what's going to happen on that front. But yes, that's everything that I got. And on that note, I'm going to give you the final word.
Oh, look, and thank you so much for having me on. And all the best with yourself, Andrew. And look, I hope you get better really, really soon. And I know and if you guys don't know, Andrew has been absolutely fantastic in scheduling me. Like, again, in Australia, it is a little bit difficult, but look, really, really appreciate it. And look forward to talking to you more often.
Yeah, me as well. And I don't think I could have said that any better myself. And that is a wrap, everybody.